default one.
Correct. So when we do all the stuff, right? See, for example, this is the data flow I selected, right? So now if you see
I'm
there is
not
a
able to see your screen. I'm not sure if you are sharing.
okay. You can see now, right?
Yeah, I can see it now.
All right. Now you see this is the one of the data flow we have created some time back,
Correct.
right? So now how this is going to be executed? So the code, if you go to the underneath code, this code is going to be executed, right? So in order to execute this code, you need a integration runtime, which will brings the data and connect the joins and do all the stuff, and then finally push to your destination.
Correct.
Correct. So that is where the integration runtime will play into picture. So
So,
whenever you see the data flow debug, right? So when we turn on, it will open a window. It says that integration runtime to be used. Right?
okay,
It's
so
in
I
auto.
have a question to you, sir. So this integration, which you say is the data flow we mapped here, right? So my question is, this we are doing as of now in Azure, in ADF. So when I download self-hosted runtime, this I cannot do in the on-prem, right? From on-prem to cloud, the data will come. After that, we do this mapping flow and all, correct?
So for you to work in on-prem, let's say you're not using anything, right? So for you to work in your on-prem, yes, you don't need a for example, you're using SSIS, right? SSIS and all, you don't need a integration runtime. But on-prem also you can use ADF. Let's say you don't want to, your organization has decided to not to take the public cloud, they can take a private cloud, which is on-prem one. Okay, so you can use on-prem also, you can access to ADF. There you will be using on-prem self-managed integration runtime, because you already have those servers are lying in your data center, right? So you will be using those.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so now quickly today I will be covering the data flow formatters. Okay, so we've been discussing about the other is it my screen visible clearly? Yeah. So now we've been discussing about the different actions available with the if you remember. Yeah. So we were discussing about different input output formatters, how to do that, and how the schemas can be modified by adding a new column or adding a surrogate key and pivoting. All these things we have discussed, and today we are going to discuss about the data flow formatters, and also we'll be touching upon alter row. Alter row was kind of a leftover from the previous discussions. We will discussing about alter row as well. Okay, and with time permits, we will also discuss about annotations and user properties at data factory level. Okay, so we will discuss it broadly there as well. Now, what is the data flow formatters, right? So basically, data flow formatters work with the JSON file kind of a structure. So far we've been dealing with CSV files. It's a comma separated, everybody knows, and it's a structured. We know how to, it's a human readable, and also we know how to what column it is, what value it is. Easily we can identify, right? Now imagine a JSON file, for example, the example which is appearing on my screen. It's a JSON file. Now it's kind of, it's not that straightforward for someone to understand as is. It's kind of a you need to spend some time to understand this format, and accordingly you will interpret those values and the name IDs, right? So that is why it's called a complex structures. It's not a simple structure, it's a complex structure. For example, if you see ID, okay, 1001, name, okay, there is an employee name, and skills. So one can have multiple skills. For example, this employee had Azure, AWS, and GCP, all the skills they have. Okay, so all the skills are appearing in this in this format. Again, address, it's spread across multiple lines. Okay, there is a country, there is a city, there is a zip code, and then again there is a contact. If you see, there is an email and there is a mobile and so on and so forth. So the if you see normally in a tabular, it's not in a tabular format. So you see some of them are tabular, for example, ID and name, and some of them are if skills had a multiple values, address had a multiple values, contact had a multiple values. Okay, that's why it's called as a complex structure. Right, and JSON is one of the widely used in terms of used with the file format to interchange the data between the systems and between the processes.
So questions are, does it mean that we should know how JSON file works basically?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, JSON file, the structure you should know.
Okay.
Okay. Now let me give an example. So in our previous, for example, the employee sample we've been using, right? So let me open that. So now here you already know that, okay, this is employee number, this is name, this is salary. It's a very tabular format, right? Now what if I want to have, for example, employee salary 1,000, right? So what if I want to store my previous salary and the increments I got from my previous previous performance cycle and all? How do you store that? So either you need to have a multiple rows that, right? For example, in this case, you need to have a uh, same, for example, 1001 again in ABC. You need to repeat, okay, its previous was something like 1500 or 900 something, right? So you'll be duplicating the records to in a readable format, right? But it will become a difficult when you have a more than
Jitna,
million or billion records, right? So that is where the new format, and it's not a mission or any other program or service is not cannot be reading as is, as you need additional processing and additional instruction to tell that, hey, look, this is the previous employee, this is the current salary, something like that. You need to indicate that. But in JSON what it provides you is a very good option to give you to declare the multiple objects within the same object. So if you see, it starts with the curly braces, and then within the curly braces, you can give the key value. It's called a key, it's called a value, and and separated by a semicolon. Okay, so ID is key, value is 1001. Name is key, and it's separated by colon and then and a name. Now skills is a again, it's not a key, it's an array. You see, more than you have more than one value with a open bracket and close bracket. Okay, similarly, address is again open another curly braces. Address itself is an object, and contact itself is another object. So it's you can have multiple objects, nested objects within this file, and the file format is something like, you can see. And finally you will close the with the closed braces, and you will close the object. Got it? So
Yeah.
you would have seen, you would have dealt with XML, right? You know XML file, how it works, right? Similarly, JSON is an advanced concept of XML, I would say, and then and it's a very widely used across the industry. You keep hearing, particularly in the data space, we keep hearing the JSON files. For example, you're dealing with the client, and you're asking him some data source or some data to be sent, and don't assume he will always send in CSV files. He will say that, hey, I have that file already in JSON format. Why don't you use that? So now in that case, you should be in a position to read that file and bring that file to your data store and use that. So for that, you need a special formatters to deal with JSON kind of a structured files. Okay. So now so what are the different formatters available? So flatten. So flatten is basically takes the array values inside hierarchical structure, such as JSON, and converts them into individual rows. For example, if you see, skills is an array, right? Where we have uh, multiple values are there: Azure, AWS, and GCP. So what does this flatten does is it takes this array of values and converts them into multiple columns. For example, Azure is skill one, AWS is skill two, and GCP is skills three. Okay, so irrespective of the format, we get either JSON or we get XML or we get CSV. You need to transform this data into the desired format, which is a CSV, right? For example, you can see it, right? So I have uh, employee ID, name, and skill one, skill two, and skill three. Three skills I have. Employee ID is 1001, name test employee, and skill one is Azure, skill two AWS, and skill three GCP. This is the format I need, right? This is where I want to store my data in such a way. But I'm getting in this format. I don't have that CSV or tabular format. I'm getting in this format within an array. So how can I convert an array into a normal values? That is where your Platin will come into picture. Now there is another option is parse, which is basically parse a text data from JSON or XML and delimited types of documents. Now there could be a chance, let's say that okay, so there could be a chance that okay, I will send you the customer agreed that to send in a tabular format, but one of the value contains in a complex structure. Now you see the difference here. So here everything is in a JSON format and it's a different format. I know that. But here I have a mix of values. So ID, model, car, these are having a tabular format, which I can understand. But the location detail, I have a different. For example, location had a multiple here. Location had India and region also is mentioned. So this is again a one of the column is complex structure. Okay, so now how I can parse this value as a JSON value and convert into a different columns, for example, location and region, so that it will be location India and region south, and again location India and region north. Sorry. Okay, so this pass basically help you to convert one of the complex structure out of this CSV file into a different columns. Okay, So now another last one is the stringify. Stringify is to complex data type into a string type. Okay, now in the same example, so this you can see this is a complex data structure. I don't want to deal with array convert one and address, and again another object called contract, and again we have a normal key value page. So it's a complex data structure. So how about transforming everything into a string? Okay, so that is where the stringify will work. So since this is a complex data structure, is the structure is a JSON structure. I want to convert this into entirely into a string format. So that is where the stringify will work. Okay, so let's deep dive into this one. With an example, you will get more understanding and more clarity in terms of how this works in one by one. Okay, so let's close this one. So take a new data flow. Okay, so my source I wanted to use. So I don't have any JSON to do that. Let's me create a new one. Now you remember so far we've been selecting a CSV file, right? Now we need to select JSON,
Correct.
right? So these are the options available. There is a file format called Avro, there is a ORC, there is a Parquet, and there is an XML. So all these files are available. So now if I ask me a delimited Excel, XML, delimited and CSV and Excel are widely used, but there are some advancements happening over the data space, and since to deal with the big data and all, these new formats like Avro and Parquet or ORC is a kind of open format is coming, where the data can be huge data can be compressed, and it's a columnar based structures, and there are some advantages over the normal CSV files. Okay, so let's deep dive into JSON. DS. So okay, so let's see preview the data how it looks like. You can see the same data over here with the complex structure. So we have a different structure compared to the others we worked in so far. Okay, so which is cool. Now go back. Now we have added that. Okay, now let's see how flatten works. Okay, so the moment you click on flatten, you want to the income string, which is okay. Let me mention as okay. So now you see the flattening is we wanted to skills, right? Skills. We wanted to flatten skills, which is coming up in the array. Now you see the income string, and now as soon as you select, see there is a description automatically happens. So if you see, it's by definition unrolls array from two with column ID, name, skills, address, and contact. Okay, so it's basically unrolling the array values. So where do you have a value rolling values here in the skills? Okay, so what we need to do is we need to select the skills over here. So it doesn't know which column has the rolling values and array values. So we need to select the values that we wanted to convert them into a string. Okay, so we have selected. Okay, so now as soon as you select, you will see the input columns like ID, name, skills, right, and address and contact details. These will automatically will come. Okay, so now just click on reset. Now you can add more over here. For example, just only one column is coming, so you can add more columns here as well. For example, you want ID and can you want name along with the skills you want name and so on and so forth. Now let me quickly preview the data, how it looks like. Okay, so let's see. I think the schema is not defined. Okay, so now so when we have a JSON, there are some JSON settings as you can see. You need to mention either a single document or a document per line or array of documents. Okay, since we have an array of documents, let's select the array of documents and see that. Okay, so now we have see automatically the skills is coming up as a you can see skill one, skill two, skill three, Azure, and we are flattening this value to skill one, skill two, and skill three. Okay, so now go back here and see the data preview. See, one employee got created over 3 records. So Azure, he had Azure skill and Azure AWS, and he had a JCP as well. Okay, and so on and so forth. If he had multiple skills, even more than 3, the number of rows keep adding. Okay, and this is how the rest of the data is duplicate, only the skills are different. So it flattens the structure what we are talking, right? So it flattens the skills in this format to a tabular format, which you can export and you can convert them into a CSV, and it will come beautifully with a tabular. You see, now we using the flatten, we have flattened the array values and we have convert them into a normal normal CSV kind of a tabular format, though we got a fixed complex data array of values. So this is the way you can use the flatten to convert the array of ways to into a normal values. Any questions before I move on to next? Okay, so now let's see how Stringify works. Then we'll go to pass. Okay, so let me delete this one. Okay, so still I have an employee JSON. Okay, so now I wanted to convert this JSON file to enter file into a string, which is kind of a CSV. Okay, so enter document. So how do you do that? I go back and you can use the Stringify. Okay, since Stringify is in a JSON format, the JSON automatically comes here. Otherwise, you need to select manually. Okay, so now you see the columns. We need to define the output columns. How exactly? For example, I need to convert my I want to give that into a column name, for example, right? For example, I will give you as address. Okay, so now I need to define that expression here. So which one you want to convert it? So it will again open the text expression builder, as you can see. Okay, so now we wanted to inputs go to sorry. Go to, so now we want to see there are two objects are available to convert them into string, right? When we have address, where you have country, city, zip code, and we have contact. Okay, so let's say I wanted to convert the into contact. Okay, let me do it as a contact. All right, so let's see that. All right, now you can see the country address came into a different format altogether. You can see country India, city Delhi, and then followed by the zip code. Okay, so instead they were into a they were into a see they were into a object. This is called an object, JSON object, but they now turned out to be strings. As you can see, they are available as strings. You can see ABC, ABC, ABC. They converted into a strings. Now, if you see, if you clearly observe, there are two kind of a data types are available. One is a key value, and another one is the array value, and the third one is the object, JSON object. So this is called, see, whenever you have a values with starting with the curly braces and ends with the curly braces is called an object. It's called a JSON object. Similarly, when you have a open bracket and it's called a nominal value. Any programming language you will be dealing with value. Okay. So now flatten helps you to convert these normal array values into a string. Now Stringify will help you to convert a object, kind of a JSON kind of an object. It will help you to convert into multiple columns. You can have any 100 number of columns, and then you can convert them into each column. Okay, so now the third category is basically the parsing, right? We need to parse this value. Let's say take example of, right, what if I got, what if I got a value in one of the column having the object. If you see this, we need to parse it, and this we need to parse it as a JSON. This will come as a CSV, the string, but we need to parse it as a JSON, and then we need to use it in our if we need to convert this term to CSV format, because this is a complex structure and we cannot read it in this way. So this has to be converted to a normal format to read it as required by as required by the output. All right. So this is where the parse will come into picture. Now let's delete this one. Okay. So to do that, what I have done is basically I have created a simple table in cars JSON. Okay, so the input data what I'm getting, I used as a string over here. For example, if you see, I declared a table car JSON integer ID, model, color, and location details. So okay, and I created some data for you see ID, one model data, color, and then location. I'm getting as a object. Okay, so as you can see, there are two records are available. One is Honda, one is Tata, and then followed by some other location details. Now I want to convert this location into a multiple columns because it's not a desired format. I want to parse this as a JSON and then convert this value into multiple columns. Okay, so let's see how it works. Now this would also will not work. So let's create a new data. Let me publish this one. Okay, so it's published. Close it. And okay, so I need to add a source. So what is source? The source is in my SQL database, and SQL this table is my source, and I need to parse this value, right? So let me add a source. Now we need to select a data set for that. So I believe we have already created a earlier one. Okay, if not, let's create a new one. No worries. So it's a SQL database. Okay, so let's see the previous ones is still available. Okay, so you can see cars JSON is available. Okay, so we will use SQL DB cars agent. Okay, so let's quickly open and preview the data. right? So we have, you can see we have a location details which is in different format, and we are trying to parse this as a JSON and then converting this them into a normal values. All right. So now source options, let everything be as is, and we'll create a, okay. So now it takes the employee second. Now you can see there is a some format options, right? So either JSON or the delimited text or XML. So now if you see the one which we are using is a JSON structure. It's opened with the curly and closed with the curly brackets, and in between some key values are there. So this is called your JSON structure. So how, what is the normal delimited structure? Delimited structure is nothing like, for example, I have a, okay, let me show you it in here. Okay, so for example, I have the previous example. If you take AWS, Azure, Azure, GCP, right? So this is called delimited text, right? It started with the string and closed with the string, and in between there is a pipe delimiter. Either you can have a pipe or you can have a comma, or whatever the delimiter you can have. This is called a delimited text. And what is JSON structs? It's always open with the curly brackets and then close with the curly bracket. So this is called your JSON object. Okay, and we also dealt with arrays. Arrays normally opens with a normal open bracket and close with the open bracket. This is called the array and list of values. Okay, so these are the different types you need to aware. And XML, you know, XML it also follows the simple tag and value, right? If it follows the simple tag, it for example, it starts with it opens a begin, right? In between there is some values, okay, and then and here, right? So this is called XML structure. Okay, you might be getting the data in XML format as well. So irrespective of the format, ADF supports all of them. You either it should be JSON or it's a delimiter or XML. Okay, so now once you have that, it just as usual create the column. For example, I wanted to create as a location. Now here you can see expression as well as output column type we need to mention. Remember the expression we are using is it opens up the expression builder, and remember we wanted to, from input schema, we wanted to use the location details, right? So this is the JSON format. We wanted to convert them into multiple. Okay. Now coming to the output column type, we need to create a schema for that. So if you see, if you go back, sorry, if you go back and see, so we have a ID, we have a location, and we have a region, right? So you need to define these columns, and you need to tell the ADF that, hey, look, this is the schema I'm going to expecting, right? So you need to create the output in a say that, hey, look, this is an ID, this is a location, this is the region. So you need to create the what do you call schema accordingly, and tell that output as an output. Okay, so how do we do that? We can use a simple open bracket. Okay, so now I have a ID. I wanted to be as a location ID, which is integer. Okay, Now location name as string, right? And region as string. Okay. Okay, says, okay, let's do. We have integer as well, right? Why it's not taking? Okay, so the region is coming as a string, so it's not allowing. So let's stick to string. Okay, so we have defined output column type, the required columns, required schema we have defined, and then we can use them into our we can process them. Okay, so now let's see how it looks like. Now you see the location ID, name, and region got added. Now let's quickly review the data. Okay, so here, so we need to select the single document because we don't have any array of anything. So it's just a single document. We need to select this one. Now you see location, ID, name, and region got added. Region South got added. Location ID and the name, it's not appearing. Okay, so let's go back and see why it's not coming. But we got the region South. Right, South, and you can see the one got into multiple records. Okay, so now go back and see what is wrong. Sorry. Okay, so we are given ID and location, right? So the names are mismatching. So let's fix that. It is just ID and location, right? This is just a location. Oh, you can see the one which is split across multiple records. For example, 1001 India South. The second one split across 1002 India North. Okay, so similarly we can do the parsing across the uh, JSON objects, whether it's a JSON or whether it's a um, XML or it's a delimited. We need to specify those settings, and then accordingly, if it's a JSON, configure this and create a output column and the output schema for that to expand that object into output columns. You create the schema and then just do the um, data preview to split those columns into multiple columns. So these are the situations it happens over in your real time, right? So when you are dealing with, it's not always, same format everybody sends, and you cannot force them. In many cases, you cannot force them to send the required format as you want, right? We need to be flexible enough to whatever the data they send, we need to be flexible enough to convert them into our own way, and then processing them, using them into further processing. Okay, so the data flows formatters mainly helpful to convert, the complex data structure like arrays, JSONs. If you are getting either complete or as an object, or within a object, there might be one or two columns you will be getting as an object, right? So in such scenarios, the flatten, parsing as well as stringify will help you to convert those complex data structure into a normal data structure, and then we can use it in our reporting purpose. Okay, so um, alter row, I think with the interest of time, we will not be covering that today. Maybe we'll take it up tomorrow. Okay, but before we close for today's, are there any questions on data flow formatters? So, whether understood or any you need to go back and revision again. It looks difficult or is it looks easy? What the response?
Difficult.
Difficult, right? Don't worry. You try 1 or 2 times. You will get used to. See, nothing is, guys. Nothing is difficult. If you ask me, this is just a tip in the ocean, right? You had to, when you get into the real world, you had to deal with multiple complex structures. Imagine the one line, right? For example, if you see this is just one employee, right? You see the only one employee. Now you could be having hundreds of thousands of the same structure, and in that you'll be having multiple, for example, skills, address, contact, and his experience. For example, if the number of companies he had gone through, that's going to be another object. That you will be have too many nested objects within that. Okay, and you can imagine, if you, let's say, he's a multinational guy, right? So you can add another country itself is another you can create another object. For example, India, and again US or UK, whatever it may be, you can create another object, a nested object, right? It will become more and more complex as you move forward. So don't worry, you will be learning all these for different formats, and that's the objective of our session as well, to familiar with the different formats when you dealing with the data, how to convert them into a normal string and then use it in our analytic purposes. Does this sound good, Sachit?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, is everyone new to JSON for structure, or are you using in some part in your regular work?
I'm not using uh, in my regular work as of now, but sooner and later I will be using.
Yeah. Okay. So do read, if you need any questions. Of course, we can bring it in discussion in our next class. But if you want to learn those things, you have to be reading those, right? See, if you ask me, even today, I tell my team that you had to be, of course, the regular work, there is no exception to that, or there is no compromise on that. But apart from that, you have to be spending at least 1 or 2 hours daily to brush up yourself, so that we are preparing for the next adventure, right? So there are a lot of changes are coming, and to be on top of that, you have to be spending quite amount of time to learn all this stuff. And we'll be discussing about other formats. You remember ORC, and there is another format also there. Parquet is the most trending type currently. Everybody talks about Parquet. Okay, so we'll be discussing that in our next session. What is Parquet and how it's different than uh, the normal CSV or XML or JSON, and how could that help us in terms of the optimization in the kind of a big data project. Okay, guys. So I will see you tomorrow, and we were going to discuss about the after row, alter row, and along with that, we are going to discuss about the annotations and properties, and then in the coming classes we'll be discussing uh, some of the remaining topics for on the data side. Okay, so for example, CDC, how do you do the CDC? What is GitHub? How do you integrate all these pipeline into a GitHub? So all those stuff we'll be discussing in the next classes. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.